Hello, it's Peter Martin here again. Thank you for having me. I'm recording this during a very warm spell indeed for this time of the year. Summer and sunshine don't agree with fair-skinned people very much, so I don't actually enjoy it, as some of you good folks do. Once when on holiday in Spain, I stayed out of the sun, but still went down with some kind of heat-related pleasantness. And I was told then a little salt and bicarbonate in water will do wonders, and that does help. So I don't greatly enjoy feeling dry, but many people thrive, I know. But there are many ways of feeling dry. When we sort of should be enjoying ourselves, sometimes we find that we're just going through the motions. We maybe go for a nice meal or look after a child who behaves themselves or receive a lovely treat, yet somehow we can't get from it what we might, and we're conscious that we're faking it a bit. You know, whatever it is lovely and should be appreciated and enjoyed, and other people seem to, but you know inside, maybe it's not like that for you. Of course, we're polite, and of course, we do our best to cover, but we usually know it, don't we, by when we give a gift and it's not quite received as we wanted it to be, that it can be, we know what's going on. So for the person feeling that, we're sometimes unable to reach into the goodness that is around us and get caught up on the badness and on the pain and on the very real misery that this world holds, and it won't let go of its grip. Now, in spiritual terms, this has been called the dark night of the soul. Lovely term, isn't it? Or a miserable experience. But a time when things do happen. Psychologists might sometimes describe this state as depression in one of its many disguises, or it may be just a mood, gone as soon as it came. But such dry times are inevitable, and people over time have developed many ways of dealing with it, dealing with dryness. Such states come to some people more often than others. Some of us are in that state expert at disguise. Sometimes, however low we may be, or cut off from life, or indeed a feeling of being cut off from God, we can catch ourselves beaming a rictus grin, or using a too bright tone of voice, or being over the top, jovial. Then the danger point. If we're able to start feeding on life again, then fine. But if we don't, the dryness turns to powder and the internal lies may start. The lies whisper, this is how you really are. The other was just a blip. The good times will never come again. Or this state is permanent. Get used to it. Blatant lies, all of them. but convincing ones. Mercifully, we're usually provided with many ways to plug back into the goodness of the universe, the goodness of God, if you like, if that's your language, and a richer life resumes. It seems to me that one of the most important things we can do at such times, and maybe the diary keepers amongst you do, is to look back and see how many times we felt like that and yet got over it. We did, in fact, get over it in spite of the lies. We did, in the end, adapt in spite of our resistance, or in spite of us declaring that is the end of the matter as far as I'm concerned. Now, this wonderful function of review, I see as one of the many wonders of the Old Testament. This time, the story is one of a people or a nation rather than an individual, which fails and fails and fails again. They lose themselves so often to the substandardness of idolatry and the illusion of control over their own lives. But then, by grace, again and again and again, they are rehydrated by the love of God or the grace of God. Now, it's very true that the God described in the Old Testament breathes fire and wrath. God, or Jehovah, or Yahweh, expresses hurt and cries vengeance. But in the end, the people are offered mercy and not retribution. Perhaps mankind writ large, but a glimpse of what God is like as opposed to humankind very often. Or if you're a strictly New Testament person, how about the story after the great defeat, the end of all things, the end of a dream, that lovely, lovely resurrected story of Jesus cooking breakfast on the beach, the isolation and failure of the disciples turned into an instant recalibration, or I suppose the word obedience may be right, to community and purpose and back to the big picture. Let's take just a moment to look at one of the many lows of this nation. Remember, this nation escaped from Egypt to become a covenant people. They'd settled, they were agrarians now. They'd gone for kings instead of priests and prophets, quarreled bitterly, became two nations, were dominated by Assyrians and eventually exiled to Babylon in the 6th century BCE. Now someone had the task of bringing the Hebrews back to holiness, or could we call it wholeness, or to rehydrate this desiccated nation. So we then read in the book of Ezekiel, the prophet's name, the wonderful vision or dream or insight. It really doesn't matter because all of these are available to all of us. Now, it seems odd, doesn't it? But this story reminded me of the dry bones, the end of a nation. reminded me of the awful and senseless slaughter of bison when the North American Indians were defeated by the new immigrants, and the senseless slaughter of thousand upon thousand upon thousand upon thousand bison. So if you care to, read this alongside me. And shall we read it slowly and meditatively so that it's got a chance to speak to us and speak maybe to our times, not really history, it's present experience for all who are dry. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth amongst them, and I saw a great many bones on the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy that to these bones, and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin, and I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord." So I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling. As the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and the tendons and flesh appeared on them, and the skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, "Prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live." So I prophesied, and he commanded me, and breath entered them, and they came to life, and stood up on their feet, a vast army. We live in times when we often want to bury our head as old certainties fade away, or sometimes they're wrenched away from us. Yet our task is always to rehydrate, to take nourishment, and to hold on or build again to hope. It may be that this hope needs to be carried on by our children. It may not be realized in our lifetimes, or it may be. Yet, it seems to me it's still the task. I personally don't think this is a task for Christians alone, but for anyone of whatever faith or none who chooses to nurture whatever goodness is available, to take nurture, then offer out hope to other creatures in this still wondrous universe. In the long narrative in St. John's Gospel of the discussion with the Samaritan woman by the well, Jesus is both the water itself and its conduit of our nurture. He invites us to drink of his nature, his nurture, then share that with those around us. Let me read you a bit. Jesus answered the woman, "Everyone who drinks this water from a well will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water that I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become to them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." Meanwhile, and also to this promise, we have nurture from love, from unexpected places, from hope where all seems hopeless, in our daily momentary experiences of resurrection. We see it in the courage of ordinary people, not just in the great. If we look, we see. If we listen, we hear. And if we thirst, we drink. Perhaps if this way of thinking or of responding to God appeals to you, now we've finished our thought, maybe as a kind of prayer after we've said goodbye, maybe take a quiet moment, walk towards the tap, get a glass of water, anticipate slowly the feel of the water in your mouth. Hold it to your lips, and then gradually and respectfully take a sip. And think of that not only as water, but maybe also as the water of life and of hope and of courage. Don't swallow immediately unless you have to. Think about rolling it round your mouth and savouring it. And offer that maybe as a prayer to God as we put ourselves in his loving hands and drink of him. Goodbye, and thanks for spending time together.